Hey, I'm Matt Manning. Thanks so much for joining me for today's devotional thought. This is our final day, and He still calms storms. Today is day 30 in the devotional. We're looking at the longest flight. On July 3rd, 2012, Dustin Martin took off from Zapata, Texas, and 11 hours later, he landed just outside of Lubbock, Texas. The distance Dustin flew was only 475 miles, which doesn't seem like a big deal. It doesn't seem like a long flight. But really, it comes back to his mode of transportation, what he was flying in. What makes his journey so incredible is record-worthy is that he flew the almost 500-mile trip with just an aluminum frame and 300 square feet of synthetic polyester sailcloth. Martin pulled off the record-breaking flight in none other than a hang glider. With only a few snacks and a tube connected to a water pouch, Martin took flight in the early morning hours on the longest day of the year to get the longest flight time possible. Zapata is an ideal place for thrill-seeking hang gliding enthusiasts because there are two weather systems that interact there. The pressure system from the west is dry air, which intersects with a strong eastern weather pattern. The two air systems combining together create the ideal, what's called a quote dry line to fly from northern Texas to southern Texas. A 20-mile-per-hour headwind or wind is just right to set the hang glider aloft in the sky. Martin's record-setting day wasn't a solo flight though, but it was a race between himself and Johnny Durand, a hang glider from Australia. Martin beat Durand by an extra 300 feet in lift. While the two men battled out their flying, the longest straight-line flight, they both relied on ideal conditions to make the record that day. Hang gliding takes a large amount of technique and skill, but the key, though, is wind to make it happen. The wind does the work. The same is true, though, in our lives. We work our job, we raise our family, we pursue our calling, we try to live out what God has called us to do in our lives to the best of our ability. But in the end, at the end of the day, at the end of our lives, however, God is the one who magnifies and promotes us. God is the one who gives us the life and breath we have. We really are truly just stewards who are using these things on loan from God. Each of us have a path and a purpose from God to follow in our lives. The temptation to compare our path to someone else's path is difficult to ignore. We look on social media, we hear other friends at work, we hear about coworkers and friends and different relationships where people are doing things and pursuing things, and we can kind of get down on ourselves thinking, well, why can't I have that? Why can't I do more? Why can't I experience that? We all want to be first and best and greatest in our list of life achievements. And yet we can find ourselves that it takes just a little bit of trust in God to look after the results, to focus on the work that you and I have to do. In the Gospels, Mark shares the story of a little boy who had the least of anyone, but he gave the most of anyone. On a warm summer day, a crowd of people were listening intently to Jesus speaking and preaching on a hillside. And when it came time, as the sun began to set, they realized that people were too far from town to go ahead and find food. And so it was that day that a little boy who had just happened to pack a lunch of 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, that Jesus took that and he multiplied that. He turned a Panera Bread restaurant on the spot there. He created that for the people in the crowd that day. And all God accomplishes in your life and in mine is for His glory and for your good. Throughout the Bible, we see people who gave God the glory and people who sought glory for themselves. Those who gave God the credit came out on the other side living better than when they first started. The key, though, is this, to understand. Those who took credit, they disappeared from the narrative. They don't have their story anymore. We don't talk about them. They are never to be heard from again or remembered. And here's the key. When you live for your glory, you write yourself out of God's story. When you live for God's glory, He promotes your story. Our encouragement for today is this, that life tends to pull us down, but God is the one who lifts us up. You can read more about this encouragement in Psalm 75, verses 6 through 7. I encourage you, use this devotional as a tool, as a resource to help grow your faith, to change your life. As well, it might be a great gift for you to go ahead and pass on to someone else. Thank you so much for joining me for these devotional thoughts for this series of He Still Calms Storms. Thanks for watching.